Yeah.
This is the backstage, everybody, if we're live.
Yes. This is what goes on before we hit the go button. Very exciting.
High activity.
Yeah, here we go. I was just waiting for the blue button. We're live. Welcome, everybody. So nice to see you. And if you're watching this on a recording or the live, thank you for waiting. Tech issues, human stuff, just doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that it's 9:08 Sydney time. We're here to talk about consciousness in business, and the topic I am super excited about. It's all about relationships, and I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to hand the baton over. Steve, I know, has got some questions and lots of thoughts, and I know, Marti, you've always got amazing insights and answers, and I'm going to be sitting in the back room taking notes, and I'll jump back in about 30 minutes or 29 minutes. Okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Over to you.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are not aware, we are a part of a group called 6-Star Business, and we had a huddle before here. So I've had to have an energy check because we had talking about a topic that was quite, I think, probably related to what we're going to be talking about now. So I'm trying to calm myself down and zen my way into this conversation.
We got quite
so, Marti, do you want to? Do you want to kick us off?
Okay. All right. This topic of relationships, I get asked to speak about this all the time. And what I always try to encourage people to do is to move at least momentarily beyond the emotions of relationships. Because usually we talk about relationships. Am I being treated right? Did I do the right thing? Did that person do the right thing? Why don't they do this? Yada, yada. We all know the complaints that we get into. But relationship, I think really the best way to master relationships is to understand what I would call the energy technologies of relationships. So there's a principle in the Andean traditions from South America, and the Quechua word for this principle is Ayni, A-Y-N-I, Ayni. And Ayni means the investment of energy, resources, love, intent, investment in relationship that's done in such a way that investment produces multiplicities of return for everyone in the relationship and everyone touched by the relationship. So imagine a fountain that's got a central spout to it, and you're tending the well that feeds the fountain so beautifully and investing in that tending that the fountain comes up really, really high and the spray is really big and covers lots and lots of ground. Yeah. So a relationship isn't I gave you an apple, so you better give me one back. It's let's do something together, invest together, and create more than either of us could create by ourselves. So Ayni actually leads us into collectivity. It leads us into working together. And it's actually very, very clear. It takes us very easily beyond the emotional level because everybody is focused on doing good for everybody. And then you have a functional relationship. And there's some technical parts of this. We can raise Ayni from one level to the next. So it's functioning more and more profoundly. But this is the basic principle. And we have everybody working together to create something positive, and nobody's working against anyone. And the other, there's a corollary to Ayni. And again, this is just the first level. There are certain combinations of relationship where we invest to create something new. And one of the biggest, most important kinds is where you bring let's talk about people for a moment. Bring people who have different skills, but the skills are complementary. and you bring those two people together to invest in a project to create something completely new, something neither person could do on their own, right? So that's one, based in complementarities, we invest in relationship to create new stuff. And the other principle is a principle of similarities. We bring similar things, people together to amplify what we've created. So complementarities create the new thing, similarities amplify the new stuff that we've created. And if we're all working in that way, and we all understand the only thing we're going to do is create good stuff for everybody, there isn't any downside to this. And it elevates relationship and interactions beyond the personal, beyond the neediness, beyond pain and wounding and all the stuff that we all carry. But it also opens us up. It creates space inside us that when we meet a human everyday level and somebody says, I'm really having a hard day, come help me, that the relationship is no longer at risk. We have space in our hearts. We have emotional space to help one another. And the relationship is a given because the relationship's created at a different level of consciousness. So those are
I have a couple of questions.
That's the principles of consciousness, these technologies of consciousness that I talk about. That's where we could start.
Great. I have a couple of questions. And my head went to two different types of relationships. One is like a personal relationship. And within that personal relationships, I've got 4 children. I love my children. I've got relationships with my children. In a couple relationship, there is a level of relationship there, and so honesty and trust and all that sort of stuff. It feels as though it's harder to be less emotional in those environments because of the deeper connectivity at a loving level. The other side of it is relationships where there is a less. It's not that it's less personal, but it's more objective relationship. So I'm in business with somebody. We're trying to. I'm building a relationship with someone because I want to find out whether I should be collaborating with them, maybe going into business together. Maybe they're a client and I'm trying to build a relationship. Maybe they're a service provider, etc. So what came up for me were a couple of questions around language, the use of language in relationships. Where does power and control, when did power and control come into the relationship, and why did it come in, and maybe there's a background there, and how do we overcome that, and is trust the thing that sort of sits above or below that whole thing? And again, I'm feeling that it's the ego that we are trying to feed in a relationship to make sure that we're seen to be, in the eyes of the person we're building the relationship with, it's almost performative, that we're trying to perform in front of them so that they'll like us more. And so that relationship will become deeper and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where my head went to. I don't have the answers to that, and I'm hoping that, you can sort of unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, what's happened in Western culture...
It was a layup, Marty. It was a layup.
It was a brilliant one. So I think what's happened in Western culture is that we don't understand these different dimensions of consciousness anymore. And mostly, in general, in Western culture, we're living at the ego level of consciousness, which is where our emotions reside and where our identity, our personality resides. But that's just one level of consciousness. And it's not meant to handle everything that we do. But we've lost all these teachings. And so it becomes really difficult. Relationship becomes very difficult. And I think here's why. if we look at indigenous cultures, original human cultures, we'll find this thing called initiation. And it used to be that at puberty in most cultures, young people would be quote unquote initiated, so they could become proper elders in the village and the culture and so on. Well, the first step of initiation, essentially, and I'm generalizing, so bear with me, the first step is finding out who you are. The first step is going inside yourself to get to know yourself, to make a relationship with yourself. So you know what your history is. You know where you've been hurt and what you've learned from that hurt. You know where you've been challenged and what you keep learning through that challenge. You also find out where you're gifted and what your value is to your community. This is the first step of initiation, and it's called becoming a person of power, to get to know yourself. And this process also includes getting to know yourself as the speech of the earth, the speech of Pachamama, the speech of something bigger. So you know you're held by something bigger, you're spoken into being. You know from this initiation, your ego is not the driver. It's just the home of your personality. It's where you can be identified as a unique member of your species. You're Joe and not Amy or something like that, right? And with this kind of initiation, you make relationship with yourself. You know you, and your being is no longer dependent on what other people think of you. In Western culture, we're only okay if so-and-so says we're okay. We're only okay if the boss likes us, if we get this job or that job. We're dependent on externals and we don't know ourselves. And then we try to have a marriage or a friendship, and the relationship is again dependent on externals, and all the weight falls on the other person. And the other person's doing the same thing to us. And you actually don't have a relationship. To actually have a relationship, let's just take two people. Ideally, those two people have a good relationship with themselves. They are who they are, no matter the circumstances. Then you come together, you make a relationship, and the relationship becomes the third entity. Whether it's a marriage or a friendship or a mentorship or anything, we've lost this little piece of wisdom, and it would make the world would be fine tomorrow if everybody could absorb this in their sleep tonight. Yeah. But we spend so much energy trying to figure out how to manage the emotional conflict, and we're really, I don't know the good metaphor, barking up the wrong tree or something. We need to actually make a relationship with ourselves first. So when we show up, there's someone to make a relationship with. Yeah. And we take this into work. This is also, I think, really important. If we bring this into business, a really good business leader is operating not at the ego level, but at a much bigger level of consciousness where they understand the dynamics of relationships. So they understand the one-on-ones, the teams within the business as a whole, the relationships of the business outwardly, and is tracking those dynamics. Who needs to invest what, where? And in that bigger dimension of consciousness, what happens is basically the human heart opens unconditionally. At the ego level, it's all conditioned. But at the bigger level of consciousness, your heart is open unconditionally, and you actually literally see what the human needs are. And it's not against the business, it's for the business. If I've got a business, even with a small team, I need to understand the human needs and do what I can to be sure my human elements, my human employees, have what they need at a human level, so they're at their best to invest in the relationships the business runs on. But the minute I let this go to the ego level, I'm sunk. Because that's the level of consciousness. There are good reasons for this. It's a big sidebar, but at the ego level of consciousness, for a very good reason, we're programmed to track for either or. And there's a big reason for it. But if that's how you're living your life, you're in deep trouble.
Like everything, Marty, we open up so many rabbit holes or places that were tracks that we could go. So Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. So, one, a statement feels like I'm 69, right? I can't recall an initiation, an official initiation of through that process, other than the fact that, my parents, we had certain rituals that we adhered to. Like Sunday night, you had to be home for dinner. Didn't matter what I up until I was about 15 or 16, right? Maybe even a little bit later. But Sunday night, and if you had a girlfriend, she came or he came to dinner, and that's where we built a relationship. There were certain things that you could do, So that was, and I don't know, experiences of people over the last 50 or 60 years, unless they've come from a particular type of family. I'm assuming that the initiation wasn't, formal. Mine wasn't formal. The other part was that I think, what I got was that through that informative years, they talk about 7, 14, 21, is there's this ability to be finding yourself, but that's through that period of time we get told, no, you can't do that, you shouldn't run there, be this. And now we've got toys that are boring for children because it doesn't enable creativity. We've got a babysitter. Was called a TV. Now it's a tablet. So all of that. So we're sort of squashing creativity to some degree. So given that that's the context, right? And you said, if everybody could go to bed tonight and wake up tomorrow morning with this consciousness, we'd be a different place. So what are some of the practices that a business owner who goes, I really would like, and again, at a business level, we're sort of talking about psychological safety to a degree, right? Making the place safe for people to be open and honest, to be contradictory, to question the rule of law because it's in the interest of the group, right? You might not be right, but you don't want to be fearful of saying something and being threatened that what you're saying is going to be used and accused against you. And if you've got a place where allows people to do that freely without judgment and bias, great. So if I'm a business leader and I'm listening to this, what is a practice that I could start to go to bed? And, this practice that I'm trying to create a different life for myself and get to be aware of my own self, my own inner power. What's a technique or a practice that we could start together?
All right, that's a huge
other than joining the 6-star business, right?
Yeah. Well, of course, I'm only going to be able to answer relative to a kind of vague example here. The very first thing that I think of is that if I had when I had employees, this is actually what I did. In hiring anybody, in addition to making clear what their job description is, here's your value in the whole. It's not here's what you must do and nothing else. You present the job description as here's your value to this business. We need your skill for this, and to make that very clear. But the this has to be described. So anybody coming into my business as an employee, I would talk to them about, and this was when I was a designer, what kind of design that we did and what the purpose of our design was, and how I understood design and communication. And that person would have to resonate with that worldview of my business. If they don't resonate with it, then we're always fighting. But if they resonate with it, then we can grow that vision together. It wasn't to limit. It's you've got a skill I need. You have the same kind of worldview. So we can both enhance your skill and enhance the worldview and the impact of the business. So you present like a cosmology. Yeah. And then you really, I think in the business culture, I think this happens with just getting together and talking about the business. I think the business leader can help everyone understand that they need to be present. And so as a business leader, you're also a mentor, teaching your employees to be present, to be confident in the skill that they have. And also to help them learn how to take input, not as a criticism, but as a bit of fertilizer to grow their skill. So the business leader is definitely a mentor, and you help your own people learn how to be present. And through that encouragement to be present and that mentoring, then people begin to trust that they have a position in the company, presence position. And then you encourage communication. And if somebody's communicating in a harsh way, in a critical way, you help people understand how to say what they're saying in a positive, constructive way. And so the business leader also needs to really be able to listen to language and understand the meaning encoded in it. We will often react to words because word A has a meaning in our history and we get all reactive, but the person didn't mean that. So the business leader really needs to be something of a visionary. But I think the first thing is when you bring somebody in, or let's say you already have teams, sit down with the team and go through this exercise. What's the cosmology of your business? Why do you exist? What's your vision of your impact in the world? And how does each person contribute to that? Have you made clear that your employees are positive, required parts of the whole? And so it's a reframing.
And for a business,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and for a business owner who maybe is not at that point yet, so that their purpose in life has been to date to create a lifestyle for themselves. To their focus has been on profit and money. And the situation then becomes, at some point in time, there's an event that causes them to reconsider their purpose in life. Typically it's some sort of health issue or a relationship breakdown, or they have this come to Jesus moment where they go, what's my life all about, right? So what we're doing, at least what my purpose is to have people think about this before they need it, right? So think about creating a life that is full of joy, rather than this life, and then all of a sudden you end up with this situation. You go, holy shit, I need to think differently because no one's going to read on my epitaph, he made a lot of money, right? It's like, so in that, right. Yeah, he was here at 10 o'clock at night every night. What a great guy. So excuse me. So with that in mind, how does the business? So you were talking about, you've got employees, bringing them on board, making sure that there's this language and communication internally. We're all working towards the same way. For a business owner inside that ecosystem, what would be a reasonable approach for them to take to enable them to be a part of that group, and potentially not knowing what the value is, and to sort of work it, and now we're starting to get into vulnerability. I don't like vulnerability. I prefer open. I prefer transparency for a whole bunch of reasons.
True.
And just to unpack that a little bit, vulnerability. If you're creating a vulnerable space for yourself, the word vulnerable implies danger, whereas that's not what you're trying to do. You're not trying to create a dangerous situation for yourself. What you're trying to do is be open and honest in a situation that is transparent, and so everybody can see what your intention and purpose is behind that whole conversation. So then you lose you limit the miscommunication to a degree. So given that scenario, and it's hard, how long's a piece of string, right? So what can we do? But as a general rule of thumb for a business owner who decides tomorrow they're going to come in, they're going to be different. That's going to be weird because everybody's going to go, you're behaving crazy, boss. What the hell are you doing? You weren't like that yesterday. So what's a gentle way? What's a gentle way for a business owner who goes, this is an interesting concept. I'm going to investigate. I'm going to experiment with that. Where would you start with that person?
Well, ideally, if I were called in to assist on this, I would take the business owner into a room, and just between the two of us, I would be sure that that person had their feet on the ground about this, understood themselves enough that they're not going to put their emotional state onto their employees, because that's exactly the wrong thing to do. So if you, as the business owner, if you got your feet on the ground and you want to institute a change in how you do business and how you are with your employees, don't put your emotional stuff onto them. It's not their job to hold it. You have to take care of that yourself with your own advisors or therapists or something. But let's say we've got a stable business owner, then what you do is you gather your people and you share not from your emotions, but you share from your bigger consciousness. You've been thinking about the business and you have a bigger vision, and you want to manifest the vision. You want everybody to join in because you think it's going to be great. So you talk about the bigger vision. You talk about an epiphany you've had about the business and about how you operate as a team. Yeah. And it's, again, this is very general, because in some cases you might have a business owner in this position who's got great relationships with their employees, so it's easier. Other people may not have had great social skills, so those relationships are a little clunky. If you don't have good personal relationships with your employees, you want to get help yourself first. But the idea is, don't do it at the emotional level. Oh, here's what I'm feeling, and it's been so hard, and oh my God. Your employees are not going to be able to hold that, and you'll just like spark a whole bunch of resentment and a little bit of insanity. But you want to get it to, and the traditions we'd call this taking it to the universal level, or taking it to the mythic level. So it's like, here's the universe the business has been operating in. I want to bring us into a new connection to the universe. Here's my new vision. And I want your input, and let's talk about what each of you are going to contribute to this, because you each have skills. So it's a continual reinforcing of the value of each unique part of the whole. And all the parts then understanding that the whole is going to grow because they're going to keep contributing in new ways.
It feels like running a business, is often said to be a lonely world. And I know that, when I've been in running an organization with 120 staff, the enormity of the responsibility, but weighs on you. So thinking that every decision that you make has a consequence, and that consequence could be the livelihood of somebody who you may not even know. Right, they're a part of your team. They're the gardener who you don't would normally meet on a regular basis. So that whole in your experience, so people who are of that mindset, are they tending to reach out for support, or are there tools that they can, do it yourself type process of that, or is it a combination of getting professional help that help guide you through an area, and then you do your own homework? With the people that you've worked with, where does the success come for them?
The success comes when the business owner is willing to be mentored.
Mm-hmm.
This is big wisdom, and it's been in existence for a very long time. There's a long line of continuity, and modern people don't know this stuff. So if you're going to make an expert move, call in an expert. And there aren't very many of us, like those of us in Six Star can really help in this regard. But I think the self-help, the pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, give me a book to read, is not sufficient. The business owner needs to be the first one to say, oh, there's something bigger that I need to call on. And I'm going to call in a master to help me know that bigger stuff, and then I'll transmit it to my people.
I would love to pause there, and if we could, I feel like that's a whole conversation. Maybe the next conversation we could actually go into that. Marti, I bet there's like piles of stuff you just want to talk about in that topic. So we've gone over time. And I just want to honor we're at 32 minutes. Thank you so much for listening. We're going to continue this in our next live. And now we're going to go off into the green room, and I'm going to be asking Marti about relationship as a business owner as it pertains to the sales journey. So when we're approaching, like in typical business world, we have to pay the bills. The money's got to come in. And as a business owner, watching our cash flow and making sure everything balances is a priority. How does one then apply this wisdom of relationship to a potential customer? So we're going to go off and talk about that now in the back room. Steve, Marti, thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if you're watching this on LinkedIn, you might get a slightly delayed or Marti's not coming through as clear. But if you not that you need to join the Six Star business, but this will be produced where you will actually be able to hear it with clarity. So I think that's on our YouTube or Av's YouTube channel, or even better still, come along. And this is not, this whole series is not about getting people to join the Six Star business. Although if you're interested in this, it will help you. So, please. It's not a sales pitch, but it's more about our love, our love for you, and we really actually do care that that you become better at something that you want to become better at. And this is a fantastic. It's helped me. Like I'm at the front door of the wisdom from the two of you, and I can tell you that it has had a dramatic impact on me personally in my business. And so, I can only commend it to anybody else.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Steve.
look, there's a number of buttons on the Six Star LinkedIn page. You can just join for free, and then you can come and look at all the videos, like Steve says, and the back room that we're going to record now that we're not doing live. So that's all there for you as well. All right. Thank you so much, and we'll see you very soon.